Hello there and welcome to a roundup of the action from the 2016 season opener for the 750 Motor Club at Donington Park. It's a season that encompasses 20 different series and championships and more than 20 days of racing between now and October. There's lots to look forward to this year with the 750 Motor Club. Our action comes from the second day of racing. On Saturday we saw the debut for the new Clio M3 Cup for the BMWs. There was a double win there for Civic Cup champion from 2015, Adam Shepherd. We also had a 2-hour race for the Club Enduro, the first of 3 this season, and Ben Demetrio and Jonathan Evans won in their Porsche 968. We'll see action from the Armed Forces Race Challenge. Also 3 races today for the Toyota MR2 Championship. Also getting underway is the K-Tech Racing Clio 182 Cup. All coming up over the next 20 minutes or so. We start though with the Demon Tweaks Yokohama Locost Championship. Ian Alley won yesterday from Danny Andrew and Richard Bradley, but on the first corner of race 2 that happened. We were on board there with Oliver Batten. We lost in total 5 cars into the gravel trap at Redgate Corner. That brought about red flags and a restart. James Millman it was that made the best start from the outside of the front row of the grid. That's where he started yesterday's race as well, but he dropped back down to 10th place during the course of the race. However, he did lead the pack through Craner Curves from Jack Coveney, Ian Alley and Lee M. Those were the top 4, with Ben Powney and Danny Andrew rounding out the top 6 on the first lap of the race. Bit of bodywork going flying after some contact in the mid-pack, somewhat inevitable in a packed grid of more than 30 of the 1300cc Ford Crossflow powered low costs. There you can see further back the 34 car of Trevor Faunch and newcomer Richard Layton as well. So bodywork scattered but no real harm done on that opening lap. Well, Tim Neat it was that produced a storming drive from 15th to lead the race. Excellent from him as a pack of 6 or 7 cars broke away. Lost 1 or 2 more to grassy moments along the way, but ultimately when the checkered flag went out it was Danny Andrew that came back to take the win from Tim Neat, last year's champion, getting a win in round 2 of 2016. Confirmation of those results, Tim Neat, after that great drive through the field, 2nd place in the end. Ian Alley was 3rd ahead of Jack Coveney, Lee M and Ben Powney rounded out the top 6. The second race of the weekend too for the Demon Tweaks Yokohama Classic Stock Cats Championship. In race 1 the champion Matt Rosier had defeated Lee Scott and Edward Cooper, but in race 2 it was Scott that made the best of the starts and Rosier followed him. Andrew Thorpe 3rd in the Citroen AX. Stuart Place we just saw going through there as well in his red 205. That had to be repaired after a clash with Ryan Clark yesterday. Clark came off worse and didn't start. Neither did Marcus Ward with engine issues sadly. Well, the first 3 cars broke away, and this was pretty much the story throughout. Matt Rosier piling on the pressure, Lee Scott just about able to hold him off, and Andrew Thorpe a close 3rd place for much of the distance. There was a 3-car battle for the lead then. There was a 3-car battle for 4th place as well between Matthew Stubbington, Edward Cooper and Paul Thorpe in the first of the Ford Fiesta XR2s. Contact sent Derek Rosier spinning off into the gravel, where he would stay. His race would be prematurely ended, but it was Lee Scott that did take the win from the number 1 car, Matt Rosier in 2nd place. Drama behind though, because Matt Stubbington, who finished in the podium finishes, pouncing as Andrew Thorpe had problems, he incurred a 10-second penalty for jump start. So it was Scott, Rosier, Andrew and Paul Thorpe 3rd and 4th, Edward Cooper and Matt Stubbington 6th. incredible 47 cars qualified for the opening rounds of the Toyota MR2 Championship, so they had to be split 3 ways, each group racing twice. This is Group C against Group A. And it was Jim Davis that made the best start to the race in the Rogue Motorsport prepared car, ahead of the Hennessy Motorsport machine of Christian White, who had such a good run towards the end of 2015. Running champion Sean Traynor in this race, but only just about in the upper midfield. He'd qualified on row 6 of the grid. Maxine Nichols you can see there in her familiar black and pink Roadster. All 3 classes represented on the grid because Paul Calloway there in his Mark 1 as well. There was a dramatic moment there for Lewis Ward, cost him a couple of places, kicked up a bit of dust, but fortunately no real damage done for the man from Stourport. Well, White got ahead of Jim Davis, but it was a pretty close fought fight. Third place man Michael Wells, now in a Roadster, making his return to the championship after a season and a half off due to work commitments. The ex-championship winning car of Matt Palmer, now in the hands of Chris Thomas, went pretty well. He finished 9th place in only his 3rd race meeting, but White it was, runner-up last season, that got his year off to a winning start. And victory came by just under 3/4 of a second over Jim Davis, with Mike Wells in 3rd place. Cam Walton, he had a good drive up to 4th place from row 5 of the grid. Tim Heron and Paul Cook completing the top 6 in round 1. More than 20 cars on the grid for the opening round of the K-Tech Racing Clio 182 Championship. You remember last year that Patrick Fletcher and James Bark finished level on points, with Bark getting the verdict because he had most wins during the course of 2015, and the Lincolnshire driver leading here through the Craner curves from George Williams and Philip Wright in his yellow Clio. Now later in the race, Williams got ahead down at the old hairpin, but it was to be relatively short-lived. You'll notice, by the way, he's not in his regular car. This the vehicle driven by Andy Tibbs to a few race wins during the course of 2015. There was drama for teenage debutant Ryan Gillespie. He's just 16 years of age, but he will get faster as the season goes on, no doubt. However, there was even bigger drama for 20-year-old Robert Armitage. He retired from the race, but not before putting fluid down on the circuit, which made life a little bit interesting for some of his rivals. He was one of 2 retirements, along with William Gayton. But it was James Bark that came through to take the win by 3 seconds from Philip Wright in 2nd. But there you can see in 3rd place it was Patrick Fletcher that got the better of George Williams for the final podium position. So James Bark, the driver from Lincolnshire, celebrating taking a win to get his defence of the K-Tech Racing Clio 182 Championship off to the best possible start. The victory margin just over 3 seconds, as I say, from Philip Wright. Patrick Fletcher another 3 seconds or so back in 3rd place. George Williams was 4th, ahead of the former Formula Renault racer Don de Graaf. Mark Balmer completing the top 6. Well, the oil slick was treated before the cars came out for the second of the Premier Choice Group 750 Formula Championship races of the weekend. Ed Pither had taken the win on Saturday in the PRS 1B, driven by his teammate David Bartholomew to the title last season. But the best of the starts to the race came from Bill Cowley in the Cowley Mark IV, designed and built by his granddad in the 1960s. He came through to lead Robin Gearing and Ed Pither, with Peter Bove in 4th place as the field went through the Craners on lap number 1. Now you can see a little bit of a moment for number 44, Nigel Harvey, in his PC Special, allowing Martin Kemp to get alongside and through at Schwantz Curve. Well, Cowley clung on to the lead for a while, but at the old hairpin it was Robin Gearing that went through. Following moments later was Ed Pither from 1st to 3rd for Cowley within the space of a corner. Well, there was still some very close racing to be had. Pither eventually getting the better of Gearing, but it was Gearing that made this move down into the old hairpin. A real ding-dong battle between the pair before it settled into a real fight for second and third position between Gearing and Cowley. At one point they were even bump drafting down the Wheatcroft straight. Eventually though, it was Cowley that got the better of Gearing, finishing second on the road, with Gearing in third place. But look how close it was. Pither though completed the double, a great start to the season for him, and he even got a lap record in Saturday's race as well, a 1 minute 16.75. But there was dramas afterwards because Gearing was excluded from the results. His rear wing was deemed to be too high. Meanwhile, Bill Cowley was given a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits as well, but it didn't make any difference to the result. What it did really was exaggerate Ed Pither's victory margin to 16 seconds. Cowley second, Peter Bowe being promoted into third place after Gearing's unfortunate exclusion for that technical infringement. Chris Goff was fourth, Mark Glover fifth, and Bob Simpson sixth. A combined grid for the Royal Purple Hot Hatch Series and the Demon Tweaks Yokohama Stock Hatch Championship. In race 1 it was the Vauxhall Astra GSI of Matt Howarth, seen leading here, that took the win from Neil Stringfellow. But in this particular race we had to watch for some quick cars starting from the pit lane. Tom Bell and Alistair Camp only managed a lap really in race number 1 due to various issues. They opted to start from the pit lane, and you can see already here they'd started to make up ground. Look in the background there, Tom Bell already ahead of the John Hobbs Peugeot 186, and there'll be more to come from those two Fiesta STs as the race went on. There's a really good battle amongst the stock hatch part of the race. Now Paul Jarvis narrowly defeated Ryan Polly on Saturday, but Polly was here that led Jarvis and Phil Law in the ex-Shane Deegan Saxo in Sunday's race. Jarvis though got ahead. You could see though by this point the Fiesta STs, the hot hatch cars, were getting well and truly stuck in, and Bell still blazing the trail through the field, with following him through Alistair Camp, the local man from Derby. Jarvis still ahead at this point, but Polly going through down the inside at the old hairpin to take the lead of the stock hatch part of the race. Meanwhile, the leader, Matt Howarth, had been caught by Tom Bell. Howarth, who racing this car that was actually raced in period in hot hatch about 10 years or so ago, in the first incarnation before its rebirth, if you like, this year. Bell eventually did get through to take the lead and the victory, however, and so too did the 45 car of Alistair Camp, but Howarth gave him quite a hard time, no real respite, and Camp only just about coming on to second position. So a very encouraging first meeting for the reborn Royal Purple Hot Hatch Series and the Stock Hatch Championship as well. Tom Bell taking the win on Sunday, Matt Howarth and the Astra the win on the Saturday. Results confirmed then: Bell beating Camp by 2.2 seconds, Howarth a further 9/10 back in third place. David Allen and Matt McCarthy won the classes. In Stock Hatch it was a very wide Ryan Polly Saxo that defeated Paul Jarvis and Phil Law. Second race of the day for the Toyota MR2 Championship. This is Group B against Group C, and Alex Knight making his first appearance of the day up against Jim Davis, who finished second in race 1. Watch out for Cam Walton in the black car with the yellow and blue stripes. He came through to fourth in race 1. What could he do in race 2? Pete Seeley at the back there, number 78, taking over the ex-Simon Wallace car. Well, it was nip and tuck between the two rogue men, between Alex Knight and Jim Davis, but not too far behind in third place, which was the number 8 car of Darren Aldworth. Jim Davis having a look there on the way out of the old hairpin, and that sort of gave Darren Aldworth a brief opportunity to try and make it up into second place. A few dramas along the way. There, going off the circuit, was the number 87 Matthew George Roadster. Also in action we could see number 50 Andrew Strange in Class C as well, but it was Mick Nichols that was the top performing roadster in this particular race. In the end, it was Jim Davis that right at the end got the better of Alex Knight and took the win. And it was a win by just a third of a second, with Cam Walton up onto the podium this time, 4 seconds back in third place. Ben Rowe was fourth, Mick Nichols fifth, and Nigel Ralphson completed the top six. The Armed Forces Race Challenge up next. They'll be joining the 750 Motor Club bill on 4 occasions during 2016. What a fantastically varied grid they brought with them to Donington Park. So it's competitors from the Army, the Royal Air Force and the Navy as well. At this point, Ed McKean in his BMW 325i was leading the way from Andrew Stacey's Mini. But look at this, McKean had dropped back, but he took the lead again at Redgate Corner, getting past both Darren Smee in the Honda Integra and Jason Williams in the BMW M3 as well. And Scott Lawson, who we've seen out in the Compact Cup in the past. Well, this was a pit stop race, and as it proved, the pit stops did prove reasonably crucial. But we see there the number 32 car going through. That's Chris Slater's Peugeot 306, but a fantastically varied field. There's Fiestas as well, including Ben Gundry's car. Mike Wells on double duty today, also out in the NR2 Championship, possibly deciding to call it a day early to preserve his car for his championship race later on. Eventually it was Jason Williams that came home in front, winning by nearly a minute, as Ed McKean was penalised by 35 seconds for not stopping for the full minute in the mandatory pit stops. So all of that meant that Jason Williams was the winner, from Darren Howe in second place. He also won Class B in his Golf, and Ed McKean was third. The best of the Class C cars was Chris Slater's Peugeot in seventh place overall. A new sponsor for the Formula V Championship in the form of Ravenol. Sadly for Jake Hockley, it's very much the same story as on Saturday when he barely got off the grid. Same again on Sunday. Paul Smith was the Saturday winner by more than 8 seconds, but as ever in Formula V, lots of action going on further back. Jack Wilkinson there, the best of the Class B cars, his Shane locking a wheel en route to the chicane. And there you can see the number 11 Storm of Ben Maludi making a place on number 23, the Bez Motorsport GAC of Alex Jones. Pretty serene progress for Paul Smith. Once again, it has to be said, the man that won 10 times during 2015 on his way to the title, his third title that was, looking pretty much in control out front. But oil was going down from Paul Taylor's car, and that initially put the red car of Tim Probert into a spin. He ended up in the gravel, and Ian Buxton was launched over the top of him. Fortunately, both drivers were unscathed, Buxton there being escorted away by the marshal. But of course, both of those cars had to be snatched away from the gravel trap. That meant that there were yellow flags approaching the chicane for much of the race, so no overtaking there. Not that that particularly affected Paul Smith though, because the AHS Dominator was well out front, and he went on to take a victory by more than 9 seconds in round 2 of the championship. Fortunately, there was more action further back. John Hughes came through nicely from row 5 of the grid, and James Harridge from row 7 to finish nose to tail in second and third position, and Scarab and Maverick respectively. And it was equally close for 4th and 5th place as well, because Harry Webb, the karting world champion, beat Jack Wilkinson to 4th place by just 5/100ths of a second. Graham Gant was 6th, but Paul Smith was our Formula V winner. A small but select grid for the 750 Motor Club 750 Trophy Series race, and two Slatters, Jack and Trevor, starting on the back of the grid after issues in qualifying. Well, it was Chris Hopkins that made the best start to the race to lead in his HCS from Martin Depper, who was actually having his first ever race, having done lots of speed events in the past. John Skevington in his Austin 7 Ulster going pretty well there. He was the best of the Class A cars. Sadly, it was race over early for Elizabeth Kemp. She had a couple of slow laps before eventually having to go back to the pits in her race kit's Merlin. Problems too for the number 44 car of Jack Slatter. The Centaur, you can hear, puttering its way back into the pit lane. There is the number 22 car of Charlie Plain-Jones. He ran second for a time amongst the Austin 7 class, but eventually getting the better of him was Ian Grant in the Austin 7 Pigsty Special. Checkered flag though went to Martin Depper, who won on his car racing debut by 14 seconds. That gap to Trevor Slatter exaggerated when Slatter had a spin at the final corner. Tim Grigsby was third in his race kit's Merlin. Second race of the day for the K-Tech Racing Clio 182 Championship, and a good start there from the third row by Patrick Fletcher, who climbed from row 4 to third position in race 1. Could he repeat that feat in race 2? Well, he was up to third before the end of the first lap. James Bark it was, the race 1 winner and reigning champion, leading. George Williams in second place. Fletcher was in third. Philip Wright fourth. Don de Graaf in fifth position as they made their way out of the chicane for the first time. Well, Trevor Gregory and Aaron Sharp there having something of a battle. Trevor Gregory in the number 14 SaxonBridge.com entered car. Good to see Trevor back full time for this season. Side by side for the lead of the race into the chicane. It had been for half a lap, and Fletcher went through. Bart hung out to dry a little bit, had no real option but to go through the gravel trap. That put him fifth. Martin Ward's momentum carried him ahead on the Wheatcroft straight as well, so Bark down to 6th place. Well, Gregory now battling with Aaron's brother Scott, this for 8th and 9th position. Scott, of course, was third in last year's Stockcat Championship. Problems, I'm afraid, for number 25, Simon Donoghue. He retired to the pits after 9 laps, just 2 laps shy of the full race distance. Well, Fletcher it was, but look, Bark had got back up into second position upon 2 wheels momentarily for Fletcher. Bark piling the pressure on, bit of a mistake on the way out of the corner, and Fletcher it was that was able to take the checkered flag. Over the line he went, Bark second and Don de Graaf third. Confirmation of those results then, Fletcher winning by 3/4 of a second from Bark, with the former single-seater racer Don de Graaf just half a second back in third place. Philip Wright, George Williams and Martin Ward complete the top 6. The final race of the day was for the Toyota MR2 Championship, Group A versus Group B, and another big grid of 30 cars storming off the grid towards Redgate Corner for the first time, and they all made it through that opening right-hander pretty much unscathed. Down into the chicane for the first time it was Alex Knight from Christian White. White, of course, already a winner today. Knight denied in race 2 on the last lap by Jim Davis, so keen to get a victory under his belt on the first race weekend of the season. Having a trip through the gravel trap, therefore losing quite a lot of places, was Robert Wells. He had started on row 3 but had to rejoin towards the back of the field after that off at Coppice. The story for much of the race then was Knight from White, but it wasn't for the want of trying on the part of Christian White, the man who'd won a handful of races towards the end of last season and finished runner-up in the 2015 title race to Sean Traynor, who hadn't had a particularly happy opening to his 2016 season. Those two then nose to tail on the way up to Wheatcroft Straight, but it was even closer for the back. Look at this, because you've got 3 cars side by side including Paul Cook and Wayne Lewis. The fight was on for 3rd, 4th and 5th between Ben Rowe, Mick Nichols and Tim Heron, and even more intense action further back. Martin Fowley, the number 9 car, also involved there, as was number 80, which was David Asprey. This all inside the top 10. Well, Ben Rowe was just able to make his escape a little bit from the rest of the field, but the key point here is that Alex Knight had dropped right back down the order. So Christian White left out in front, a moment for Alex Knight, dropping him out of the top 10 and behind the number 29 car of Martin Fahey. So the checkered flag went to Christian White, a double win in the opening meeting of the season for the Toyota MR2 Championship. Paul Cook going through there in 7th position with Martin Fowley and David Asprey over the line together in 8th and 9th, but Christian White winning by 4 seconds from Ben Rowe, with Mick Nichols another second back in 3rd place. Nigel Ralphson, Timothy Heron and Wayne Lewis completed the top 6 finishers. Well, that's all we've got time for at Donington Park. The next meeting is at Alton Park at the beginning of April. We'll have action from Brands Hatch later that month. Bye for now.